first thing I'm going to say is we've had ourselves a little bit of bad weather. Yes. Apparently there's more coming on Wednesday. And Merry Christmas, season's greetings, all that good stuff. I guess we're all getting ready to start that now. It's time enough, hey? 1 week to go before Santa. On everybody's iPads there, you should have a copy of the agenda for the December 17th meeting. I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as presented, moved by Councillor Stoyle, seconded by Councillor Ledwell. Are there any additions to the agenda that have not already been recorded, either for committees or elsewhere? Any additions to the agenda?
There are two, Your Worship, two for planning.
Two different items for planning. Correct. Do we have a copy of those here?
You should. We do, yeah.
I should. Hold on now. Okay, so we've got two from planning. Okay, and they're all stapled together, are they, or is this just one?
There's one about Wilkes Avenue and one about Dell Contracting.
Okay, and they're coming up in planning. And I'm sorry, Councillor Stoyles?
Regional Services?
There's also, okay, so there wasn't a Regional Services Committee report, now there is. Okay, thank you. We'll add that as well. Anything else to add to the agenda? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. The first thing on the agenda then, business arising from the December 3rd meeting. Entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented, moved by Councillor Aker, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Okay. I'll figure out everybody over there now one of these days.
Eventually.
Are there any errors or omissions? And again, this from the council minutes of December 3rd. Hearing none, all those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried. Business arising.
Bishop, I have an item.
You have an item. Refer to the agenda item if you would, Councillor Stoyles.
811.
811?
13-12, 811.
811. Let me get down to that. Okay.
And that's the item, Your Worship, that I brought up at last public meeting concerning the container and business operating over at the Mount Pearl Square.
Right.
And when the Your Worship spoke to the lady after the storm on Sunday night or Monday morning, and the container has been moved. Unfortunately, apparently it is a business operating, to my understanding, without a permit. But what they've done, instead of taking the container from the complete site off of the parking lot up there, they moved it from one end of the parking lot right over to the other end. So the people who initially complained, and the several residents that I had been speaking to, they're quite happy. They are, the noise is not as loud. They're not being woken in the nighttime, even though it's still a little big noise, but it's not near as bad. Now, the people right up on the other end, and Harlingen, just on the other end of Golden Eye, now they're having problems with it. And I've only spoken to one person, one resident up there, so I don't know to what level the noise is, because it seems to be a bit further away from the homes.
So they actually didn't remove the container at all. They just relocated it.
They did not remove the container. The container was when you go up and back of the Mount Pearl Square, right over to your left. That's where the container was, as far over as you could go, up in almost on a parking lot, right up on the end of the parking lot. It was in a little corner there. Now it's over in the far right over in the far corner over there. I was up there today, actually. I went up this afternoon and I took a few pictures. There was a truck actually being filled up with sand as I was there. And I did take pictures and a small video of it to pass on to staff so they can do further investigations. There's a name on the truck and everything like that. So
I think we know who they are.
We
know the company.
I think we know who they are. But anyway, I mean, if it is a business operating there and they don't have a permit to operate there, and interfering with people's sleep in the nighttime. It's different when they park, when they plow in the middle of a storm, and they know, like the residents said to me, that's going to happen 8, 10 times, maybe 20 times during the winter. Hopefully not as much, depending on the amount of snow we get. But to be up there every night just because they're plowing and salting and sanding and that. And what my understanding is, this company is doing is they have a truck full of sand and they're doing parking lots and other businesses within the region. And I certainly would, Your Worship, ask our our staff to take further action and, to do something about this for the residents.
We will do that, I'm sure. I'm sure we'll do that right away. Okay, Councillor Ledwell, also in addition to this item?
Yes, it's also in addition to this item. Actually, this is an update on some of the action that staff have taken as it pertains to this particular matter. Planning staff have been in contact with the property owner, the management company up there, just to sort of clarify what's been going on with this particular, container that's up there. The container is used for salt and equipment storage by the contractor that's maintaining the parking lot at Mount Pearl Square. It's used for snow clearing and winter maintenance. According to the company up there, it's not at all a business, and it's used for not used for any other commercial properties. It's simply to do with the snow clearing in the area of Mount Pearl Square. As an interim measure, the contractor has indeed hid the container, as Councillor Stahl suggests. It has moved from, let's say, if you're standing in the front parking lot, it's moved from the far left, from behind where the original residences were complaining, I guess, and it has been moved farther towards the back, up to the other part of Harlequin, and I guess that's why you're still getting some complaints. That was done in an effort to try and move the operation away, so the noise was reduced. That is not the final location, however, of the particular container. It's actually going to be moved further down towards what would be the parking lot, I guess, for the movie theaters that were there or are still there. Basically, once the final location is determined, then the management company up there are going to work with planning staff to get the permit put in place and to decide on the final location. Basically, the contractor is prepared to paint the container, to deal with any graffiti that's on it, to clean it up a little bit, and certainly they're willing to work with us to try and come up with a suitable location for the particular container. One thing that they do ask, of course, is that we do understand that in terms of snow clearing equipment, there is a need for a little bit of noise, I guess, and some light. They're certainly prepared to work with us to try and minimize in any way possible the impact on residents, but they do want to mention that the lot does have to be cleared, and therefore there is going to be some noise. I guess the bottom line is they're going to try to move that container as best they can to avoid any continuation of the noise.
Okay, thank you.
So it's only for the operations at Mount Pearl Square?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's easily determined. Okay. Anything further from business arising?
I have one, Your Worship.
Deputy Mayor Locke.
Sort of a good news story. 1312, 812 there. Safety Snowplow. I know we launched it on December the 3rd, but I've received great positive feedback from many people. Seen a lot of these little red toques going around and red T-shirts. But the kids are speaking about this at their houses now with their moms and dads, so the message got out. And I know Nathan Elliott, our winner of our design, he was proud as punch as he was in the plow on our Santa Claus parade, not Santa Claus parade. And so the message went out there. So I just wanted to bring that up and tip our hats to our staff for such a great launch, a great initiative. It seems to be working. The children are at least speaking of it around the supper table and in their houses. So that's a good sign. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything else from business arising? Hearing none, we'll return then to the agenda. And I don't know what just happened here, but something happened to me. Bear with me 1 second here. It's Community Services next?
Yep.
Okay, Community Services Committee we've called. We have no proclamations or correspondence. Deputy Mayor Locke.
The first item, Your Worship, has to do with a memorandum of understanding between the City and the Legion. The committee is recommending approval to execute a lease agreement between the City and the Mount Pearl Park Glendale Branch 36, the Royal Canadian Legion. And this is in relation to the property at 26 St. David's Avenue. Many residents will know that as the softball hut, there by the softball field, the softball building complex. And this is subject to the terms and conditions as set forth in the lease. The City, Your Worship, will lease the premises for and during an initial term of 49 years. And Your Worship, this is, of course, this is a major step in our plans to relocate our Legion. We've moved them up to the St. David's Field. And of course, as we know, as our residents know, we're in the process now of transitioning our baseball field to a central park. And the Legion will be a central point, a focal point. The next stage, of course, once this lease is assigned, the lease agreement is signed, we will then move the cenotaph and upgrade the cenotaph. So it will be a prominent feature in our new central park. and it'll be quite visible as people are traveling through the area. So the next step we must do, Your Worship, is to execute this lease agreement, and I so move.
It is moved by Deputy Mayor Locke, seconded by Councillor Stoyles. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion carried.
Another memorandum of understanding, Your Worship, has to do with the Mount Pearl Frosty Festival, Inc. Our committee is recommending approval to execute an MOU between the City and the Frosty Festival, Inc. for the period of January 1st of 2014 through to April 30th, 2016, and I so move.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Stoyles. Question or comment? This MOU comes into play right now, right? So it will apply to the Winter Carnival coming.
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion carried.
The third item, Your Worship, has to do with Christmas hours for, the next couple of items, actually, with our various facilities here. I won't go through all the times here, but just to note that the Reed Community Centre will be closed on Christmas Day and Boxing Day, and also be closed on January 1st, January the 2nd. These other times of operation will be on our website. They'll be posted at the Reed Community Centre. So just give our residents the heads up that normal operations, as is usual, will be changed a bit so they can have a look either at the Reed Centre or at the city's website. The next one deals with the Christmas hours at the swimming pool. Again, Christmas Day and Boxing Day it'll be closed, and also New Year's Day it will be closed as well. But the times are outlined there again on the website and at the pool. And the last one has to do with the Kenmount Park Centre. This centre will be closed from the 24th to the 26th, as well as December 31st and January 1st. The other days during Christmas, they're open from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. The sixth one here, Your Worship, dealing with Kenmount Park Centre, just to notice to the residents that this will be closed for renovations December 16th to the 20th inclusive, and then it will open for 3 or 4 days and then close again at the various times during the Christmas celebrations. Next is the Family First Night celebrations, a great tradition here at the city. This takes place at the Glacier Arena, 4 to 6 p.m. on New Year's Eve. It's a great opportunity for families to come on out. It's free of charge. They can come to the Glacier for a skate. Many times we have staff and council members don the blades and go up for a scoot about. There's usually some music, some live entertainment up there. A great time is had by all, and it's really picking up with popularity over the past couple of years. Quite a few people are coming out. And then council members come along, and we have an official countdown for the children to bring in the new year. So just encouraging all residents, if they wish to take in this, again, it's free of charge. It's a non-alcohol family event. It's 4 to 6 p.m. at the Glacier on New Year's Eve. The next item is the 2014 Winter-Spring Activity Guide, just for the information of the public. These have been compiled by our Community Services Department, and this activity guide will be delivered over the next week via mailboxes to all residents in Mount Pearl. So we encourage folks to have a look down through that. We just have so many events, activities that people can participate in to stay active and certainly enjoy our winter conditions there. And the last item, Your Worship, has to do with the tree recycling program, but I'm going to strike that because there's been some changes made at IPW. So that's it for Community Services here today, Your Worship.
Thank you, very much. Next would be Infrastructure Public Works Committee. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and good afternoon, everyone. Just a couple of things. The first, of course, we're all anticipating the budget presentation a little later on. I think Councillor Aker is all geared up for that.
Clearing his throat and everything.
Yeah, I don't want to be so hasty though to skip over a $70-odd million capital budget. So I'd like to do that. And of course, Your Worship, we're asking for the approval of Council for a 3-year, 2014 to 2017 multi-year capital works budget. This is cost shared 70% covered by the province and 30% covered by the municipality. This is the largest submission we've ever made, totaling $61,061,000. So what this contains, Your Worship, obviously is a number of different initiatives and projects. If I could just get them to open here, it is. It is obviously roads work and street repaving, some extension of necessary water and sewer infrastructure. We have some improvements to buildings, facilities, fleet and equipment, trailways. We're addressing some emergency preparedness issues, as well as a number of strategic initiatives that we identified as part of our strategic planning session. So it's a fairly ambitious plan, but a very necessary one, and we're seeking the approval of council to submit the details to Municipal Affairs for approval. And I so move.
It is moved by Councillor Walsh, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Any question or comment? We should make note that this is an application only. It's not
correct, yep.
It's not so much that this is a budget. This is an application. If we were to get approval, we'd have to draw up a budget for it.
Absolutely. In fact, we already have items somewhat prioritized and itemized, and there are costs associated with each, but you're absolutely right. This is just an approval for the submission of the request for support for municipal affairs for the projects that are identified. I think the normal
I wouldn't want people to jump up and down going, oh my God, they're going to spend $79 million.
Well, it'd be a nice complaint to have,
would be a good deal
but
of
no,
work.
it's not quite where we are yet. But we're making the application.
We'd have to
for
spend
it.
1/3 of it if the government said yes, right?
Absolutely, and why wouldn't we?
And we would.
And we would, for sure. So I'd.
So you need approval.
I need approval
we need a motion
for that.
on this. So it's moved and it's seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
Your Worship, we've had a couple of snow events already, and I just want to bring you up to date in terms of where we were in our response on Sunday. We had crews in on Sunday afternoon, additional crews applying brine or a solution, obviously, that prevents the snow from sticking so quickly to the surface. We had all 7 of our flyers out and operational. And as the snow started to accumulate, we had crews called in addition to our midnight shift to clear the streets. We had a very good and very quick response to the snow this time around. And of course, this is the second of our snowfalls so far this year. I think the first one was the 10th of December. And again, that's always a little testy, as we've said many times, but we seem to be doing well in terms of the upstanding of the equipment. Although we did, I think, Mr. Randall, have 4 loaders that have problems, and we have, I think, 16 or 17 loaders. So you're going to anticipate problems, and a lot of these problems are related to hydraulics and the pressure, applying that kind of pressure on the vehicles so early in the year. And as we encounter mechanical difficulties, we address them. Carry out the necessary repairs or replace parts and put them back out. The fleet is in reasonably good shape. We do need a few more loaders in particular, but we have 13 routes, 17 pieces of equipment, so we're in reasonably good shape. Just wanted to update council on that. I'll defer the multiplex update until a later time, but we're doing well with that and moving along on schedule. We're about 80% financially complete on that right now. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, sir, very much. Planning and Development Committee, Councillor Ledwell.
Thank you, Your Worship. We do have a number of items, so I'll try to get through them as quickly as we can. First of all, we're in receipt of a subdivision development agreement for Phase 2 of the Moffat Road subdivision development. Prospect Development is proposing to construct 23 single-family detached dwellings on Truxton Place, and the signing of the subdivision agreement is a condition of the development permit, which was issued in June of 2013. So the recommendation from the committee is that approval be granted for the Mayor and the Chief Administrative Officer to sign the Moffat Road subdivision agreement for Phase 2 on behalf of the City of Mount Pearl, and I so move.
Moved by Councillor Ledwell, seconded by Councillor Walsh. Question or comment? All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
Second item we have is a development application from Stericycle Incorporated. They're proposing to occupy a portion of the existing building at 27 Clyde Avenue as a biomedical waste transfer facility. The occupancy will involve temporary internal storage and warehousing of biomedical waste generated by hospitals and other local healthcare providers. The waste will be delivered to the site, packaged in containers, and then will be transferred to larger containers for transportation out of the province. Basically, there will be no processing of waste that will occur on the site. There will be some unused clean containers that will be washed on site, but those that washing will not involve any of the waste being washed into the sanitary sewer system. Stericycle Incorporated is currently approved by the province for the transportation of hazardous materials. However, they will be required to undertake an environmental assessment at the request of the Minister of Environment. The uses surrounding the property currently are of light industrial or transportation in nature. The proposed industrial use is within the range of the industrial and commercial uses that are currently existing in Donovan's Business Park. Public notice of the application was advertised in the Telegram on November 9th. One response was received from a nearby property owner, However, a meeting was arranged with planning staff, the respondent as well as the proponent for the project, and apparently the respondent was satisfied that all of his questions were answered adequately as a result of that meeting. So currently, planning and development staff as well as the committee are prepared to recommend support for the application. So the recommendation from the committee is that the Planning and Development Committee recommends that the application for Stericycle Incorporated to occupy a portion of the building at 27 Clyde Avenue for the purpose of operating a biomedical waste temporary transfer and storage facility be approved, and that a conditional development permit be issued subject to the following as outlined by the Planning and Development Department, and I so move.
It is moved and seconded by Councillor Walsh. Questions or comments, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, Your Worship. As I was reading through the background reports here and our kits here, there's no mention made as to the volume of biomedical waste that we're dealing with here, you know, and I'm just curious. I mean, as a resident hears this, and I noticed that one of the key issues that the only respondent referenced was, you know, the concerns around this. So I'm just curious as to what sort of volume of biomedical waste we're dealing with here, say on a weekly basis. What could we expect coming to this facility?
Councillor Ledwell.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Locke. Basically, we're not really looking at a very significant amount of waste as it pertains to this particular facility. We're probably looking at something in the neighbourhood of, say, 20 to 25 of our garbage carts, if you will, our residential garbage carts. So that would be a good estimate, I guess, of the amount of waste. Not overly significant as it pertains to some other uses that we could maybe entertain. So it's not really anything to be too concerned about at this point. No problem.
Okay, thank you. Call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried.
Our third item this evening, Your Worship, is related to the proposed Mount Pearl Municipal Plan 2010, Amendment Number 6, 2013, as well as the Mount Pearl Development Regulations 2010, Amendment Number 22, 2013. The committee has reviewed the report from Commissioner Gerard Lewis. The report is dated November 26th of 2013. The amendment proposes to redesignate and rezone a portion of the property situated at the south side of Park Avenue, immediately east of 59 Park Avenue, and west of the provincial T Railway corridor from open space to residential, and to rezone the property from open space to residential medium density. The purpose of the amendment is to provide Council with the authority to consider a multi-unit residential development fronting onto Worrell Crescent. Commissioner Lewis has recommended that the plan amendment and rezoning be approved as presented. You'll see his report there in the kit. The committee does, after reviewing the report, does support the recommendation. So the recommendation from the committee is that the following actions be taken. The Commissioner's report dated November 26, 2013 be accepted by Council, and pursuant to the Urban and Rural Planning Act, the Mount Pearl Municipal Plan 2010 Amendment Number 6, 2013, and Mount Pearl Development Regulations 2010 Amendment Number 22, 2013, the Worrell Crescent Amendment, be approved as attached, and I so move.
Moved, seconded. Question or comment? Hearing none. All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
Moving right along, we have a fourth item, proposed amendment to the city's fence regulations. Now, these amendments, you'll see them in the kit, the new regulations. They're to incorporate standards for the construction, maintenance, and repair of retaining walls on private property. The amendment is in accordance with Section 39 of the City of Mount Pearl Act. A notice of motion has been made at the October 22nd, 2013 meeting of Council to amend the regulations. Notice of the amendment was advertised in the Telegram on November 23rd and posted on the city's website. There were no responses in return for the advertisement. And the department has proposed that the proposed amendment be adopted. The committee has reviewed the amendments to the regulations, and the committee does support the amendments. And to that end, I'm just going to find my recommendation there. Bear with me for one quick moment. Actually, there's an easier way to do this. The Planning and Development Department recommends that the proposed fence and retaining walls, Regulation 2013, be adopted, and I so move.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Walsh. Question or comment? All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
Our next item is, actually our next three items, we have three notices of motion, so I'll read those through. First of all, in accordance with Section 39 of the City of Mount Pearl Act 1988, take notice that, in accordance with Council's public notification policy, I will, at a regular meeting of Council, move an amendment to the text of the Mount Pearl Development Regulations 2010 that, if enacted, will, In Section 11, Use Zone Schedules, subsection 11.9, Apartment Use Zone, add the following development standards for road development. Road dwelling, you'll see all of the standards there that will be added. The purpose of this amendment is to stipulate the development standards for road dwelling development within the apartment use, dated this 17th day of December 2013. Second notice of motion that we have, in accordance with Section 39 of the City of Mount Pearl Act 1988, take notice that, in accordance with Council's public notification policy, I will, at a regular meeting of Council, move an amendment to the text for the Mount Pearl Development Regulations 2010 that, if enacted, will, number 1, in Section 7, Special Developments, amend Section 7.11, Family Child Care, by revising conditions relating to the family child care uses. In Section 9, Off-Street Parking and Loading Regulations, revise the minimum off-street parking requirement for family child care use to provide flexibility to Council to reduce or eliminate the current standard of 1 parking space for every 30 square meters of gross floor area. In Section 11, Use Zone Schedules, remove family child care uses from permitted to discretionary uses in a number of use zones. The purpose of this amendment is to update the conditions relating to family child care uses and to provide a process for neighborhood commentary prior to Council's decision on these uses. Again, dated December 17th. Thirdly, in accordance with Section 39 of the City of Mount Pearl Act 1988, take notice that, in accordance with Council's public notification policy, I will, at a regular meeting of Council, move an amendment to the Mount Pearl Development Regulations 2010 that, if enacted, will amend Map 1 Land Use Zoning Map as follows. In the area identified as Pearlview Phase 7, north of LaSalle Drive and west of Mount Carson Avenue, rezone approximately 2.69 hectares or 6.64 acres of land from the residential single-unit detached 3, or RSU 3, to residential high-density, RHD. The purpose of the proposed amendment is to allow the construction of double dwellings or semi-detached dwelling units without subsidiary apartments on lots with a minimum lot frontage of 16 meters for each double dwelling. And
We should let, just for the record, because I know people are watching today with Rogers here, just let everybody know the reason why nobody is commenting on it is that on a notice of motion, we don't actually comment on the notice of motion. We will actually do some research as councillors and then comment on the motion and the proposed suggested changes. What this does is simply table it into the public record, and the work begins from there. Just so that everybody is clear, because everybody might wonder, why is Councillor Ledwell simply going on and nobody is saying a word? But that's why. The notice of motions are treated like
thank
that.
you, Your Worship, for giving me an opportunity to take a breath.
There you go. And you're not finished yet.
Not finished yet. I still got some more to go. The next item is the development permit list. You'll see the permits numbers 81 to 85, and I'd like to move the permits.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Walsh. All in favor? Contrary-minded, motion carried.
And then we have our permit list. First of all, for the residential permits for this period, totaling $1,550,700, and I'd like to move that, please.
Moved, seconded. All in favor? Contrary-minded, carried.
And secondly, the commercial permits for the same period, totaling $8,503,924, and I so move.
Moved, seconded. All in favor? Contrary-minded, carried.
Now I'll move on to the 2 items that are outside the kit, Your Worship. The first item has to do with Wilkes Avenue, and this is an application to rezone the rear portion of 8 proposed lots that are situated on the north side of the proposed Wilkes Avenue from commercial mix to single dwelling unit 3, detached use zone. Just so everybody can orient themselves, of course, Wilkes Avenue would run from the top of Pollux Drive, the bulb there, going across over to Moffett. Truxton Place is also off of the proposed Wilkes Avenue. The purpose of this proposed amendment is to have the entire area of these residential lots on the north side of Wilkes Avenue entirely in the RSU 3 zoning. So that's to permit the residential development of these 8 lots that we have. Public notice of the briefing session was scheduled. The briefing session was scheduled for November 13th. Public notice was given in the Telegram on October 26th. It was circulated to 53 property owners within the 150-meter area. That's, of course, pretty typical of the way we handle these briefing sessions and the advertisement of the same. There were no responses, so the briefing session was cancelled in this particular instant. The proposed amendment was also sent to Municipal Affairs for review. Provincial release of the amendment was received on December 13th. And so the committee is prepared certainly to recommend that council approve the amendment to allow the rezoning of these particular 8 lots, and I so move.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Walsh. Question or comment? Does anybody find it interesting when you look at the map of it there? Why is there a Wilkes Avenue when it's not an avenue? And why is there a Pollux Drive when it's not a drive? Wouldn't it be Pollux Avenue and no Wilkes Avenue? Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, well, I mean, to me, in my little world, avenues are avenues, crescents are crescents, streets are streets, etc. Places are usually cul-de-sacs. So how come a cul-de-sac is called a drive, which to me is a main collector street? Drives are, you know, they're main collector streets. Why is it a drive? And then Wilkes Avenue is one little straight street that connects the cul-de-sac through to Selkirk. I don't know, I'm just curious. Planner, how does that happen? Mr. Yevchek?
Well, Your Worship, the Pollux Drive, the cul-de-sac you see there at the present time is actually a temporary cul-de-sac. It is the intention that Pollux Drive will continue going north.
It goes further on then?
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, right,
So-
that answers that. So that does become a drive, you're saying?
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay, well, how does this little straight line here become an avenue?
Well, I guess it was just a matter of the term that council approved, I guess, for that portion of the street. I have to say, Your Worship, I wasn't there when those decisions
you're
were
not
made.
taking any blame for this.
So, but I think you did a grand job.
We're just going to call the question here. All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion carried.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do have one more item. This is a one from outside the kit as well. It is an application from Dell Contracting, Limited. It is regards to the property at 13 to 15 Old Placentia Road. What they're proposing to do is to construct 3 new buildings at 13 to 15 Old Placentia Road. The proposed buildings will actually be the 3rd, 4th, and 5th buildings on the site, and they're proposing to develop and utilize a self-service storage mall. Say that 3 times fast. Basically, the subject property is located within the industrial light and the proposed light industry use zone. It is a permitted use within the zone, and the self-storage use will be added to the current permitted uses in the IL use zone during the housekeeping amendment that will be to come at a later time. The proposed buildings are not going to be serviced. They're not going to contain any office space, so there's not going to be a need for any washroom facilities. This will be confirmed through the building permit review process, as the proposal requires Service NL approval. There is a bit of a concern as to how traffic is going to flow on and off and interact with the site. Basically, the concern, I guess, revolves around how domestic domestic vehicles are going to access the site and interact with vehicles that are loading and offloading equipment and things to be stored. We've been assured by the proponent that only one driveway will be used to enter and to exit the site, that being at Civic number 13. However, Civic number 15, that property is going to be contained. The rear yard is going to be fenced off and secured, so there won't be traffic coming to and fro there. The property does back on to some of the residential areas, I guess, up in Powers Pond. So the department certainly does reserve the right at this time to perhaps require a privacy fence as we move through the process. But basically, the proposal is within the regulations. Certainly, it fits as a use in a particular zone. So planning staff are prepared to recommend acceptance of the proposal, and therefore I'd like to move that we move ahead and issue the permit as it pertains to this particular use as per the conditions that are in the report, and I so move.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Walsh. Question or comment? I have one just very quick one for you. You say here that these buildings will not require servicing. But the concern, obviously, whenever we do these kind of things, we always think about the next, iteration of that building, the next use of that facility. I'm assuming that because of where they're located, if it should be converted at some point down the road and no longer be a self-storage mall, but somebody actually did want to utilize the building for a business purpose, like putting an office in there, for example, providing servicing is not hard to do, or is it difficult to do?
Your Worship, if indeed they wish to change the nature of the self-storage mall, they have to make application, and then at that point we would deal with the matter. Certainly our policy is that if there's any use of buildings that are more than just a storage nature like this, they would be each one required to be serviced independently. So if you take a look at the way those buildings are set up, you probably can only service one of those 3 storage mall buildings. The other 2 would not be able to be serviced in that manner. So the chances that at least 2 of those buildings being used for anything more than self-storage purposes is very, very slim.
Okay, thank you. Any other question or comment? Hearing none, we'll call it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded? Motion is carried, and I do believe that concludes planning.
It does.
We have a Regional Services and Environmental Report. Councillor Stoyles.
Thank you, Your Worship. We just have a couple of items, information items, more than anything, Your Worship. The Regional Service and Environment Committee met several times, actually, Your Worship. We had a regional wastewater meeting and a regional water meeting in the city of St. John's the past couple of weeks, and just wanted to inform the public of the water levels. And there's a chart there, and it will be on our website for information. Our water levels are quite good compared to other years, and we're quite pleased with that. And the other item we have, Your Worship, is the regional water approving of the budget and the 2014 water rate, which is 0.543 cubic meters, and that is the rate for the year 2014. And the operating budget was approved at our meeting, and it was for $12,878,031. And I don't know if I need a motion for this. It's just for information only.
No, information.
So it was approved at our committee meeting, and Councillor Aker sits on that and attended the meetings along with me, Your Worship, and certainly is an experience sitting around the table and learning all the new information about the regional water. And apparently they're in the process of using some new I don't know if you call it new technology, but they're going to be using some other forms, the chemicals and that to deal with the algae and that in the water, and that's going to be another item for 2014, 2015 when we meet, Your Worship, to discuss this.
What's our share of this new budget? Does anybody have that part? It's 12 million. We are about 13%.
Councillor Rader would have that right on the top of his head right now.
Is it about 13%? I'm sorry?
It's
4.2 million of the 13 million is Mount Pearl's share.
That's Babel.
Okay. Yeah, it's all Babel's big one. Okay, thank you.
That's it, first, Your Worship.
All right, thank you very much. Moving along, we are up to Transportation and Public Safety Committee. Councillor Tessier.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, in keeping with our budget meeting, our agenda is very brief. We want to remind residents that the snow clearing regulations are indeed in effect from December 1st until March 31st. That means that no vehicles are permitted to be parked on the street within the hours of 1 a.m. and 8 a.m. So between those hours, 1 a.m. and 8 a.m., vehicles are not permitted to be parked on any street within the city. The director indicated to me that while we did have weather activity this winter, and it wasn't probably as significant as it could have been. However, we still experienced some challenges with cars that were left on the street overnight in several areas in Mount Pearl. Those cars indeed had to be ticketed. We don't want to get into a situation where we're going to have to tow vehicles in order to keep streets safe. We know that little storm that we had was very minor in comparison to storms that we have and will experience again this winter. So we have to encourage people that they have to comply with regulations. They're in place for a reason. They're in place for safety. They're in place to make sure that our streets are kept clear and accessible for everybody. So again, we're reminding people that they can't park on the streets between 1 a.m. and 8 a.m. in the morning. Another issue that has come into play already is that we have experienced people pushing snow into the street from their driveways, either with a snowblower or with a shovel, particularly after the street has been cleared. That's creating a hazard as well, because the street has been cleared, So our drivers, our snowplow operators leave and feel quite content that the street is clear when indeed it will get filled in again by somebody who is snow blowing onto the street. That, again, is against our regulations. That is ticketable, and we're going to remind people that they absolutely cannot do that because it does create a hazard for the driving public, and it makes it a lot more difficult for our crews when they have to come back and clear it again because some time has passed since then and it becomes icy and the conditions are not as favorable for clearing it. So that is a very, very strong reminder to our public as well. Also, we want to remind our motorists that the children are going to be out of school. And it's very, very important that they are aware that they should drive safely. The children are very much excited for their Christmas break. And with weather conditions and with snow and everything else, we want to make sure that our motoring public are always cognizant. We encourage people all year long. We've talked about speeding in these chambers a dozen times. So we encourage people to slow down and drive the speed limit. Well, in winter conditions, we're going to encourage people to probably slow down below the speed limit. And drive according to the weather conditions, according to the road conditions as well. And, of course, to be very, very cognizant of our youngest residents who will be out enjoying the holidays. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Councillor Tessier, very much. Moving on to corporate services. Councillor Dave Aker, floor is yours, sir.
Just a minute now, Your Worship.
Get himself to rights. He's got to get himself to rights.
Got to get himself to rights.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a Hickman Harbor statement for sure.
I must concur with Councillor Tessier about I couldn't believe the number of people who snowblowed their snow into the walkway. I thought it would have been people who were shoveling. Not to excuse that, by the way. But, you know, it seems to me there's lots of places to put the snow, and I'd have a hard time being sympathetic if somebody got a ticket, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. Well, Your Worship, Corporate Services has their committee presentation right now. And before we get on with the budget, we'd like to move the invoices for approval. As you can see there on the blue sheet, a revised list, $2,149,476.04. Half of that being a payment to Marco for our multiplex. I guess that's put us over the 80% mark. As you can see, there's 28 invoices there. And it's a hodgepodge of stuff, mostly regional services and infrastructure and general operating costs. These are the higher dollar value amounts. And I'd like to move the $2,149,476.04.
All right. It is moved by Councillor Aker, seconded by Councillor Tessier. I'm looking down through all of these 28, Councillor Aker. And one of my pet projects is not on here.
We've already paid for the camera up in the...
No, we got the camera. We got the camera. We got the camera. Yes, we did. No. Our robocall system was about $5,000, and I understood it had been ordered and that it was in. Mr. Silver maybe might be the man to answer my question.
Yeah, it has been ordered. I haven't checked as of late. I understand it is in as well, but I guess we haven't been invoiced.
You haven't been even invoiced for it yet, because it is about $5,000, right?
Once it's invoiced, then we'll put it through then for approval.
Okay, I'm a happy guy now. Perfect. No, well, like today, for example, there was a notice went out to everybody today, and I got it yesterday, about the changes in garbage collection over the Christmas holiday. And I said to my wife, I said, pin that on the fridge, because we're going to get at home, right? We all are. We're all going to get a dozen calls from our neighbors about the garbage has changed for Christmas Day, because ours is Christmas Day. It's not going to happen, right?
Right.
Today, there was a delivery right to my door. Everybody in my area got a notice, I think, a paper, right? But the robocall thing would be, so that's why I wondered. Anyway.
More economical, more direct, too.
Yep. All right, I'll call the question. 28 invoices. It is moved by Councillor Aker, seconded by Councillor Tessier. Anybody else have a question or comment, either about that which is commissioned or that which is the sin of omission relating to invoices? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion is carried.
Well, Your Worship and fellow councillors, it's a pleasure now as Chair of Corporate Services. I'm very pleased to present today the Mount Pearl City Budget for 2014. And I'd like to start off by thanking Council and staff, especially senior staff, for all their efforts and contributions in preparation of this budget. Our budget process always involves many hours of hard work, and it involves a healthy debate. And the result of these efforts is a budget that we believe reflects continued fiscal responsibility and focuses on the delivery of core services. We continue to strive to deliver results in each of the 4 key strategic priorities, which include the provision of innovative and sustainable services, responding to our ever-changing population demographics, focusing on attracting, retaining, and engaging the most qualified employees throughout our city, and focusing on the effective and efficient governance of our city. Before outlining our 2014 budget, I'd like to highlight some accomplishments from 2013, and we're particularly proud of many of these. First one is continued construction of our recreation multiplex to LEED Silver standards, which incorporates things such as geothermal heating and cooling. Construction of this significant project is currently on time, on budget. I'm happy to say we're currently over 80% financially complete, and we've had no surprises to date. We continue with committed investments in street and road upgrading of just over $5 million in 2013. We completed and opened a very innovative and one-of-a-kind dog park in Powers Pond. We continue to invest in training and development of our strongest resource, which is our people, our employees. And that was epitomized by the presentation to the city by Municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador of a Torngat Award for Excellence in Governance in 2013. We continue to invest in and install these pole-mounted school zone flashing speed displays to help with traffic calming in high-risk areas, which goes to show what a priority safety is for this council. We've completed and had a grand opening of the new entrance to the Team Gushue Sports Complex and to the new softball field and softball clubhouse at the same location. And further, we've done significant renovation to the former softball clubhouse at St. David's, which will now become the new home of the Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 36. We continue with our very successful Waterford River cleanup. This is the 3rd year, and we hope to have a very successful one again in 2014. And we've continued to partner with the Mount Pearl Paradise Chamber of Commerce, including consultation today on our 2014 budget. We've seen continued commercial growth through the development in the Kenmount Business Park, as well as the redevelopment of the Donovan's Business Park. And we've seen continued residential growth in areas like Mount Carson Terrace, Pearlview, the Hillside, and Sundara condominiums. We've invested in a pilot project which will involve the use of thermoplastic line markings to address not only safety concerns, but also cost overruns. I shouldn't say cost overruns, but also cost pressures associated with line paving, not just in Mount Pearl, but throughout the region. And finally, another highlight from 2013 was the introduction of a vermicomposting organic grass clipping collection program. Whoa. And we're very proud of that. That's a pilot project, too, that holds great promise in terms of diverting grass clippings from the landfill and recycling them. With respect to private development in our city in 2013, Your Worship, I'm pleased to announce the city has again experienced a healthy level of investment by private developers, with over $41 million invested in residential, commercial, and industrial construction. Mount Pearl again saw growth in business, and approximately 62 businesses opened in our city so far in 2013, creating 478 new jobs. Mount Pearl is now home to almost 1,100 businesses, employing over 15,000 people. And we're very thankful to all our businesses, both big and small, for again making us a net importer of jobs in the region. All of these accomplishments effectively supplement the outstanding level of core services that we continue to offer to our residents. In addition to the provision of our core services, the members of the Mount Pearl Paradise Chamber of Commerce have indicated that one of our highest priorities should be strategic planning. We fully agree and are committed to constantly reevaluating our existing services and making continuous improvements to ensure Mount Pearl continues to be a leader and innovator in the provision of municipal services. As a part of this reevaluation, Council and senior staff have been working on an updated strategic plan whereby we are reevaluating progress toward the achievement of our strategic goals and are updating and reaffirming our commitment to our existing strategic priorities. We've also identified and set new goals and objectives to help us meet these priorities. And while our new and updated plan will be finalized in the coming weeks, work has already begun on both implementing an updated plan and measuring our success towards the achievement of these goals, and this budget will reflect some of these priorities. Now, Your Worship, I would like to switch our focus to look more closely at our plans to achieve these strategic objectives, and specifically the budgetary priorities for 2014. We began our budget process again this year by looking at all the costs of running our operation and deliberating over potential expenditures of over $55 million to run the city in 2014. In fact, prior to even looking at the city expenditures, we were facing over $2 million in increased costs for regional services such as fire protection, water and wastewater, while also facing the loss of our municipal operating grants totaling $700,000. Facing these realities, our budget deliberations focused on finding a solid balance between strategic investment in our community and trimming expenditures. Ultimately, we have settled on a final expenditure budget for 2014 at the amount of $43,211,000, which represents a 4% increase over 2013. While we are able to minimize the impact of increasing costs, it was necessary to adjust both residential property tax and business tax in order to offset increasing costs of delivering our core suite of services at the high level our taxpayers have come to expect. For 2014, we were going to adjust our mill rate for residential property to 7.4 and our business tax rate for general commercial operations to 17.5 mils, and along with comparable adjustments throughout our remaining business occupancy rates. Our commercial property tax, along with our water and wastewater rates for commercial and residential taxpayers, and our automated waste collection fees will remain unchanged in 2014. Your Worship, there are of course some significant components of our budget over which we have very little control. In fact, about 60% of our budget goes toward these two main expenditure categories. Firstly, 25% of our budget, or $10,675,000, goes toward the cost of services such as fire protection, water, public transit, wastewater, and waste management. These costs alone have increased by more than 24%, for an additional burden of over $2 million over last year. And once again, the city is committed to paying our fair share of this burden. In addition, 35% of our budget, or $15 million, is spent on wages and related mandatory payroll costs. And like all municipalities, these costs continue to rise each year. We're proud to pay our employees fairly for the great work that they do on behalf of the city and its residents. Another large expenditure category is that of investing in our municipal infrastructure. This spending is a little more controllable in that Council can choose between conflicting priorities, but nevertheless, the demands placed upon the city to address the infamous infrastructure deficit facing all municipalities across Canada are high. The city in 2014 plans to invest $3.8 million in capital spending out of general revenue and gas tax revenues in various infrastructure initiatives. We plan to supplement this investment through additional capital works projects to be undertaken with funding from provincial government. And the city is committed to funding almost $14 million in streets and related infrastructure over the next year, with the city share being $4 million. In 2013, we committed to a multi-year project to invest in Donovan's Business Park, which is now underway. We've hired a consultant to help create a concept and a plan. And a survey conducted by the Mount Pearl Paradise Chamber of Commerce indicates that our business community feels traffic is an area of concern for them, and further that investment in our transportation network is a high priority. And we certainly share that opinion. And in response to this, we plan to invest in a citywide traffic study in 2014 to help predict the impact neighboring development will have on our transportation network, and to ensure we properly plan changes to our infrastructure going forward. 2014 will see the conclusion of a Donovan's concept plan, and we will be implementing this plan, which will be more than just a replacement of asphalt and concrete that will help to continue to rebrand Donovan's from an industrial park to a business park. In addition, 2014 will see the city continue its long-standing commitment to investment in recreation facilities. The city has recently announced a partnership with Campia Gymnastics, to construct a new gymnastics facility to house Campia's programs. In addition to this wonderful achievement, work has also commenced on transforming the former St. David's softball field and park area into a beautiful passive park that will now become the new home of the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 36 and the Cenotaph. Work will continue on the Team Gushu complex development, with Phase 2 of the parking lot and entranceway redevelopment planned for 2014. Plans are also underway to invest in numerous other recreational and community service areas, including the construction of a new minor baseball field, improvements to the Pearl Gate track and field complex, to Admiralty House Museum and Archives, to various playgrounds, playfields and courts, and of course to the Reed Center. The Reed Center will receive some upgrades to help integrate with our new recreation multiplex. And of course 2014 will see the completion of construction and the grand opening of our multiplex, which will include a modern fitness center and state-of-the-art aquatic center. Despite the significant level of infrastructure or investment in infrastructure, including the new multiplex, we will continue to maintain a debt ratio of just 9%, a sound fiscal position, and one of the lowest rates of any municipality in the province. We believe this represents the optimal balance between prudent borrowing for larger projects, which will ensure our debt ratio remains strong, positioning Mount Pearl well when considering future operational and infrastructure needs. What this means is that we are being truly proactive to avoid problems in the future. Your Worship, I'd also like to highlight $900,000 in strategic investments that we plan to undertake in 2014, and these are coming from some of the areas that we've flushed out as priorities in our strategic plan. The first is some snow removal safety initiatives, followed by an anti-litter campaign, property condition inspections, the cleanup and maintenance of fields, playgrounds, and other infrastructure. We intend to do a densification study, as well as a development impact study, including that traffic study I referred to earlier. We're going to be upgrading Park Place so that we can accommodate our ever-growing Mount Pearl Seniors Independence Group. And we intend to also increase our municipal enforcement effort, as well as to introduce a city-wide facilities recycling initiative. And finally, a new initiative that we plan to implement next year, which will come from Public Works, is a bulk garbage collection system, which will include now, or going forward, will be enhanced to 2 scheduled pickups, as well as 2 pickups at the convenience of taxpayers.
People are going to love that. Oh,
They will.
sorry.
We have also committed to continue many of the economic development initiatives, which we began in recent years, and would like to continue to build further on our strong relationship with the Mount Pearl Paradise Chamber of Commerce. We would like to take the opportunity to thank the Chamber again this year for surveying its members to determine what their priorities are for municipal services to be provided by this city. The results of the survey were summarized and included in the 2014 budget submission by the Chamber, which highlighted, amongst others, 3 main areas of focus. One was reasonable taxation levels, and Council feels that the tax levels proposed in this budget are reasonable, and changes in taxation rates are reflective of the basic needs of our community. The second item was improved roads and infrastructure. And as previously indicated, we'll continue to invest in streets and related infrastructure over the next 3 years, including a significant investment in Donovan's Business Park in order to meet this objective. The third thing is strategic planning. The city has recently started a process to review our strategic plan, which when originally adopted in 2011, and that will be updated in the coming months. The budget reflects a strategic approach to municipal planning, service delivery, and resource allocation. During 2014, we look forward to working with the Mount Pearl Chamber of Commerce and beyond as we review our core services for ways to improve and implement new initiatives. This budget will also include the continuation of the senior citizens' 20% property discount for those in need, and the continuation of an interest exemption for all senior citizens who remain current with their tax payments. We've also continued our interest exemption and tax deferral policy for low-income earners who earn up to $40,000. recognizing that many of our taxpayers do face significant financial pressures that increase year over year. The exemption from payment of business tax will continue to all operators of daycares and personal care homes within the city, and that tax break hopefully will allow operators to continue to spend a little bit more on the services they provide in looking after our loved ones, and we are pleased to be able to extend this exemption again. After determining the operating costs of running our city and choosing a responsible level of capital spending for 2014, the city's budget for 2014 will be $43,211,730. Council has considered all avenues available to fund these expenditures. A modest but steady amount of growth in our tax base provided some additional revenues to offset the increased costs we are facing. Changes, however, to our tax rates are still necessary and not done lightly. And as always, Council keeps these changes to a minimum, the minimum necessary to balance the budget. Your Worship, the budget we have put forward helps us to continue to effectively deliver our core services at a high level, to effectively invest in our municipal infrastructure, and to take a strategic approach to municipal planning and resource allocation. Our commitment is to continue to search for more creative and efficient ways to deliver high-quality services in a way that creates true value for every taxpayer paid by our residents and business owners and operators. And as required by legislation, Your Worship, I have 4 motions. Would you like to do one at a time?
One at a time, please.
One at a time, please. Okay, just a sec now. The first motion, Your Worship and Council, be it resolved that the City of Mount Pearl, in accordance with the City of Mount Pearl Act, establish the tax rates per the that you see in the kit here for the 2014 taxation year, and I so move.
Moved by Councillor Akers, seconded by Councillor Tessier. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
Thank you. The second motion, be it resolved that the City of Mount Pearl, in accordance with the City of Mount Pearl Act, approve the attached schedule of rates and fees, which you see in your kit, to take effect January 1st, 2014, and I so move.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
Thirdly, be it resolved that the City of Mount Pearl, in accordance with the City of Mount Pearl Act, approve an annual interest rate of 10% to be levied on all past due taxes and accounts receivable, and I so move.
Moved by Councillor Akers, seconded by Councillor Tessier. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
And finally, be it resolved that the City of Mount Pearl, in accordance with the City of Mount Pearl Act, approve the 2014 budget with operating revenues and expenditures totaling $43,211,730. I'll get it out eventually. $43,211,730, and I so move.
It is moved and seconded. Now, I ran the first through pretty quickly, but this one, as I do traditionally, questions or comments, and I know there are some, and I'm going to invite Councillor Aker to open any debate or comment on this, but I'm going to point to this for you, and you might want to talk about that. Just saying.
I gave mine away. This document here, Your Worship?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, this document here is available from City Hall. We've decided not to print it on paper and send it out to everybody in the city, but you're certainly more than welcome, I think sometime tomorrow, to be able to pick it up off our website as a PDF. I think in general, Your Worship, this budget was challenging. I think we met this is my 5th budget. I think we met probably twice as much as we've done in the past. There certainly are some challenges hitting the city. One thing I believe we can take away from this is that we were hit on many fronts in terms of cost implications, namely inflation, which we were able to, I won't say eat, basically we were able to manage that by finding savings in other areas. I estimate the effect of inflation without looking at the core services of, water, fire, waste, and that. I estimate that to be at least $500,000. We search for ways of funding our strategic priorities, because we can't be about doing things the same old way. We have to try to do things in a new way. That you could see in the budget document was almost $1 million that we found basically by going to other budget lines, including operating and capital, finding the savings and making that work. At the end of the day, we also looked at, we were faced with operating cost increases related to new facilities, close to over $1 million, basically. And again, we've been able to go through our budget lines and find savings there. But in terms of fire and water, wastewater, public transit and the like, those core services, we got no discretion with it. You know, we have to achieve the high standards that are required for water and wastewater. You've never heard anybody complaining about fire protection in this city. The response time from the St. John's Regional Fire Department is second to none. So those areas there, basically, we have very little discretion. We can't just go back to senior staff or to our regional partners and say, can you cut 5% from that? Not like we can say in some of the other lines, and live without it and change our priorities. At the end of the day, Your Worship, the $2 million increase in revenue, in taxation revenue, was driven by those core services. And ultimately reflect at the end of the day the cost of being a municipality and the cost of doing government and providing the services to the city and the residents of Mount Pearl.
Thank you, Councillor Aker. Any other questions or comments from anyone at this point? Okay, hearing none, I am going to point out that I find it interesting, and we've done this all the time. I know we're going to put it on the website. I'm a little disappointed that we're not actually going to mail this thing out, but I understand the cost of it has become outrageous to mail it out. This is a tremendous document. The one page in particular that I've always appreciated that this document has always contained and still does is this one. It is a page that we put out and provide to everyone, and it says very simply where the money comes from and where the money goes. And I think everybody appreciates just how much effort and time went into this. So I appreciate, Councillor Aker, the effort that you and Councillor Tessier put in, and our staff on the Corporate Services Committee to get this ready. A tremendous amount of work, a tremendous amount of effort, and it is, as they say, too bad that prices go up. Prices go up, costs go up, and we find ourselves in that circumstance this year. With no further comment at all, I'm going to call the question then on the budget for 2014, totaling over $43 million. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. And that concludes finance. I believe that concludes all committee reports. All right, very quickly, we're going to go around the table. New business, Councillor Ledwell.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be very brief. I too wanted to pass on congratulations to the committee, Councillor Aker and Councillor Tessier, and of course all of council and senior staff for all of the hard work that was put in on the budget. Certainly, as Councillor Aker referred to, it was a challenging budget. The cost of everything does indeed increase, but certainly I think we're doing our very best to try and control costs for the public and for ourselves. And certainly I think it's a very good budget, especially with all of the strategic initiatives that Councillor Aker highlighted. So kudos to everyone for their involvement in that. The other thing I just wanted to do is very briefly wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, certainly to all of my colleagues on council, all of staff, and certainly to the public as well. Certainly wish you all the best for a joyous season and all the best in the new year. That's it for me.
Thank you, sir, very much. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. When we took our seats today, we saw a little chocolate treat here.
Yeah,
one of the people from Rogers said it was probably from one of our neighbors, one of our municipal neighbors. That's probably not true, but whoever is responsible to... Yeah, this is the candy man. I know who it was. And thank you for that, because it's very much in keeping with the spirit of the season. What we were going to say was, of course, if it did come from a neighbor, that we'd have a taster do that at the beginning. But we were going to recommend it be. We're going to recommend that it be Councillor Aker. Yeah, since it was the budget this year. Again, great job on the budget, Councillor Aker. It was a difficult and challenging piece of work this year, especially. By the way, with the slight increase, that only keeps us at competitive or at par with the lowest of our regional neighbours here. So it is a slight increase, but we have to live with that. We have to cover our costs, and obviously we have to pay our way and continue to do that as we've always done. With that, Your Worship, I just want to extend as well my own best wishes to everyone for a very Merry Christmas. I know our staff as well will enjoy a much-deserved break over the Christmas season.
No time off for anybody. No time off.
No, absolutely not. Not now. And also, very best wishes for a healthy and prosperous 2014 as well. Thanks very much.
Thank you, sir, very much. Councillor Stoyles.
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, Your Worship, I wanted to say thank you to all my colleagues around the table for the understanding, because I have missed a fair number of committee meetings, and I did get to a couple of budget meetings, but certainly wanted to say thank you to everybody here for their understanding while I was getting back on my feet again. But hopefully in the new year I won't miss any more meetings, and I will be around. So
And you won't be contrary. I told the seniors at the dinner, I said, she's getting well, because man, is she ever contrary at the budget meetings.
I don't think we attended I don't think we attended any public functions at all this year, Your Worship. We just weren't up to getting out in the night time and attending a lot of events. But hopefully in the new year I'll be back and
Amen to that.
And that. But I do have a number of things today, Your Worship, that I wanted to report on. And the first one, Your Worship, is the Municipal Assessment Agency. They had their election of officers that was just Thursday last week.
Yep.
And a new board is in place. The Labrador Director is Terry Hancock from Photo. Western is Dean Ball. Central is Mayor Randy White. Eastern is Mayor Paul Pike from St. Lawrence. He's the only new member of the committee. Everybody else was re-elected. Avalon is Betty Moores from Clark's Beach, and the Urban Towns Director is Peggy Roach from Torbay. And I represent M&L on that board, Your Worship, and only pleased to do so. And also, while I'm speaking of M&L, wanted to pass along to Mount Pearl and to our council. We had our first board meeting of the new board for M&L here in Mount Pearl last weekend, and they wanted to pass along thank you from the board and that for our support to them holding their meetings here at the City of Mount Pearl. And also, Your Worship, I wanted to mention tomorrow night the North East Avalon Joint Council is having the last meeting for the year, and it's here in Mount Pearl, and it starts at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. That's where 21 communities here in the region in the North East Avalon meet on a regular basis. We meet the third Wednesday of every month, and each council out of the 21 council has 2 representatives that comes to these meetings, and is a great way to talk about different issues within the region, and it's a great committee to be involved. I've served on it for a number of years, but in my role as Avalon Director now, I don't get to attend as many meetings and that as I would like. But I just wanted to say to any councillor to come tomorrow night for the meeting, and there will be Christmas social afterwards. Also, Your Worship, I wanted to mention the industrial accident that happened here in Mount Pearl, and pass along our sympathy to the Keatings family. And as awful when there's an industrial accident in your town, in your city, but certainly we wanted to pass along our sympathies. And a long-term resident of Mount Pearl, Pat Kennedy, passed away a couple of weeks ago, and wanted to pass along to the Cran and Kennedy family our deepest sympathies. And also, Your Worship, too, I wanted to pass along Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to everybody in Mount Pearl, and look forward to seeing everybody in the new year.
Thank you very much. We're going to go to Councillor Aker.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Just 2 or 3 things. I don't think we had the Santa Claus parade since we last met.
Yep.
And I want to just throw out a congratulations to the Mount Pearl Lions. It was a great parade, very well organized. Everything went safely. It was in the true spirit. Even the weather cooperated like it does every year. I can't figure out how that really happens, but it does, thankfully.
You obviously got a very short-term memory.
Don't jinx it. Yeah. Or I'm not elected as long.
Well, because I want to tell you, last year it was really cold, bitter.
Yeah. I think we had the wind at our
2
back.
years ago, we were in a virtual snowstorm.
Yeah. Anyway, I think they did a
Fellows got no
fantastic job organizing it, and I know they had a lot of support from city staff, and also our city staff participated in a very fine manner, both in terms of help organizing the parade and policing it, but also participating in the parade, driving some floats, and actually building a float. And I think it was one of the better floats that we've had. I mean,
There's somebody that we owe a thanks to on staff that did most of the work on that
guaranteed.
float, right? Who
Yeah,
was
he's
it?
got carpentry
Jerry identified
skills.
him for me. Who was it? Tony
Who's
Williams,
that?
right?
Tony Williams?
Did a real lot of work, the physical, load of putting that Polar Express float together.
Well, I'd feel ashamed if we didn't pass on thanks to him. If you would, please, I'd greatly appreciate that.
There was a lot
and
of
everybody
people
involved,
but it
yes,
was
of
a great
course, right?
float.
You know what I mean? The second thing I wanted to compliment the Mount Pearl Minor Hockey Association. I know I was involved a little bit, and so was Deputy Mayor Locke. This food drive for the benefit of the food banks here in Mount Pearl, one at St. Peter's and one at Mary Queen of the World, was put off basically by Mount Pearl Minor Hockey, and most of the pickup of the food was done by the teams, the players, the coaches, and that. Mount Pearl Senior High greatly brought in a whole lot of volunteers. They organized everything back at the school, organized it. They were checking for best before dates, sorting the food, getting it bagged, ready to go on the truck, and then it was taken to the food bank. So kudos to all. It's a really gratifying, satisfying experience this time of the year in the material world we live in to be helping those less fortunate. And they really put off a great job, both Senior High as well as the Hockey Association. And then on a Christmas theme, I would hope that with Christmas coming up, we would be able to be a bit lenient with tickets. I'm getting a little tiny bit of feedback about people who are visiting, and I know we normally could ticket at this time of the year for our off-street, on-street parking regulations, but would there be a chance that we could just be a little bit softer in the Christmas period? That's not really coming from me. That's coming from a resident who received a ticket the other night, who understands the way the rules work, but they'd also like, could the city, if there's no bad weather and there's no snow clearing operations in progress, would we be able to at least be a little tiny bit lenient? I'll leave that to committee.
I can assure you,
cannot.
Councillor Aker, that you can advise the person involved or anyone
Pay
that
the ticket.
our generosity on this matter is boundless up to 1 a.m. in the morning.
Up to 1 a.m. in the morning. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, in closing, I'd like to wish everybody here a very, very Merry Christmas, not just the council, but the senior staff and all staff of the city. Particularly to Director Silver, who played a very, very lead role in the budget. He hasn't seen his family, I don't think,
Sure,
in
he's got
6
no hair
weeks.
left. He had a full
He's
head
got
of
no
hair.
hair left. So I'd like to wish Jason, and corporate services at this time of the year does have to rise above the rest, and they certainly deserve a lot of credit for the budget which we tabled here today. So congratulations. Merry Christmas to all.
Thank you so much. Councillor Tessier.
Councillor Aker actually did touch on the Lions, the Mount Pearl Lions Santa Claus Parade. I was going to extend congratulations to the Lions Club once again for such an exceptional job. On that same day, of course, our city staff held our annual tree lighting event as well here in the park, and it was absolutely beautiful. It's always such a wonderful event to see so many people coming out. It was cold. It was a cold night. Well, there was.
What a moment of panic.
There were some technical difficulties, but it made you all the more appreciative when the lights did come on. They were beautiful. And
Well,
there was
Sean
a lot.
McKenna, by the way, did we actually hang Sean McKenna from the flagpole? I thought that's, as Emperor, that's what I'd ordered. Or maybe it was what I wished when I counted 3 and nothing happened.
Sean
Beautiful tree, though.
Sean does a great job, as do of course all of our Parks and Community Services staff, and all staff certainly within the city of Mount Pearl. But it was just such a beautiful day to have Santa in the morning and the tree lighting in the evening. It was wonderful. Lots of nice touches too. I think there were LED lights or something on the tree, and they were passing out 3D glasses to make it even much more enjoyable for the children. It was really neat. It was really quite neat. I tried it. Even when it wasn't lit. But anyway, I want to congratulate, of course, our staff on their efforts with that as well. It was beautiful. And the Polar Express was indeed there and lit up, and it made for a beautiful photo opportunity for families. Aside from that, I want to wish everybody on council, with our staff and with our entire Mount Pearl staff and with all of our residents, a very, very joyous Christmas and Happy New Year. And here's hoping that 2014 brings nothing but goodness for everybody.
Amen. Amen to that. Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor Locke.
All right, Your Worship, many of the items that I was going to mention have been touched on, but congratulations to Councillor Aker on the delivery of the budget speech. Again, toughest one, as Councillor Walsh said, my toughest one since I'm on council. A lot of tough decisions made, but I'm happy with the outcome, and I'm sure our residents will be as well. Councillor Aker also touched on the food drive. There were 350 kids that participated in that. And that was a cold morning on Saturday morning, so it was very heartwarming to get up to the school and see that I think there were, Councillor Aker, 17 teams participated, and then 40 kids from the intermediate. I just wanted to tip my hat to the organizers. Dave Edney is the president of the Mount Pearl Minor Hockey Association, and I know he had his executive as well participate in that. Tanya Edney is a teacher at Mount Pearl Senior High School, and she put in significant time as well to organize the school perspective. And I also want to thank Fred Hand. Fred is one of the owners of JB Hand out here on Topsail Road. While the business is not within our boundaries, Fred has lived and raised his family in Mount Pearl, and he has a huge heart. So he provided the cube truck to collect all the food. Not only did he provide the food truck, but he also loaded and unloaded the truck. So he gave up about 5 hours of his time on Saturday. So I just wanted to send a heartfelt thanks out to Fred, Tanya, and Dave for organizing this. And as I was speaking to my wife afterwards, because she was up at the school as well, as Councillor Aker indicated, they had to sort the food and that. This reminds me of what built our city. Growing up in the city of Mount Pearl, I was born and raised here. It was these community organizations that came together. That's the foundation of the city of Mount Pearl, where people come together to help each other out at no cost to themselves. They do it because it's the right thing to do. So it was a beautiful event. We collected 15,000 food items. I can attest to that because Fred and I loaded about 14,000 of those into the back of the truck. And then it was a true pleasure to go to the 2 food banks and offload that. Speaking with some people at the food banks, and I was sort of shocked by these numbers, Your Worship, that on a monthly basis there are 650 families in Mount Pearl that rely on the food banks. So I was sort of struck by that number when I heard that. While we are an affluent community, and you can certainly see the changes, it's quite visible. You just look at our streets, the quality of the cars that are being driven, the cost of the cars that are being driven, but there are still those folks within our city that are in need. And it was very, very nice to see 350 of our youth to give up significant time on a cold Saturday morning to collect food for those in need. So again, it was a great event, and I just wanted to send congratulations and thanks out to those involved, all those involved. I did learn some things, though, as we were going through the food items, that, of course, as Councillor Aker mentioned, they look for the expiry dates. And anything that was dated 2013, given that we're in December, they didn't throw it out, but they sort of kept it, and they're not permitted to give that out as a part of the food bank, but they sort of put it on the table, and people can sort of sift through it and take it, if they wish. Just because it's the best before date has passed doesn't mean that it's
bad after.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that it's not edible. But there were some other items there that were considerably older, so they did have to be thrown out. So, but again, it was a great experience to be involved in that. I do know that Jack Lee was there. He's president of Hockey Newfoundland Labrador, and he's going to put a challenge out that all I think 37 other minor hockey associations next year. He's going to put the challenge out that they all participate in this and see if we can't make this a provincial-wide effort. Because it's my understanding, again, listening to some of the media reports and what I've read, that on a monthly basis there are 27,000 Newfoundlanders and Labradorians that rely on the food banks. And of course, speaking with one gentleman at the food bank, he mentioned that he's very grateful to Mount Pearl because this drive that takes place at Christmas time, then there's not another drive until February when we have it during our Frosty Festival, and then the next big one is City Days. So while there's a lot of food came in at this time, there are times during the year when, when the shelves are a little less full at the food banks. So as I said to many of the students that were involved, I encourage people during this Christmas time to look outside of ourselves. That's the true Christmas spirit, where you look beyond yourself and look to your fellow neighbor. And again, that tends to be the case in our lovely city here in Mount Pearl. Also, Your Worship, I did want to mention. Send out Christmas greetings, of course, to my colleagues on council. We spend a lot of time together, especially this time of the year, and of course to the family members of council, because I know for a fact how much time that we commit to this, and I just want to acknowledge that. So Merry Christmas to you, your family members, of course, our senior staff, and all of our staff, because as our mayor says so many times, they make us up here in these chairs look so good, because they put such a great effort in on behalf of all the residents in the city. And to our residents at home who are watching here tonight, Councillor Tessier summed it up beautifully. Merry Christmas, and may 2014 be the best and happiest year yet. And that's it from me, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, very much. Just very quickly, Councillor Stoyles made reference to the MNL board meeting, which was the first meeting of the new board. It was hosted here in Mount Pearl. Our staff and everybody did a good job on all of that. But coming out of that, which will be of interest to Paula Tessier, who was the former chair of the activity relating to the Northeast Avalon Region Regional Plan, the process that stalled. You will recall that the 15 mayors in the region had a meeting with the minister a couple of weeks ago. The minister, at the request of the mayors, made representation to MNL, to Municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador, to be the project manager to restart that effort. And I'm delighted to tell you that MNL has now reviewed all of that, and it's green-lighted it. So they're actually sitting down debating the budget now. Not will they, but they're going to. And I think that's good news for everybody in this region. Everybody always thinks that all we do in this region all the time is fight. They don't realize the level of cooperation and collaboration that actually exists in the region, and that what we're dealing with here is what makes this testy is that you're talking about everybody's future. And that makes it a bigger challenge. But the fact that it's the organization that is owned by all of these municipalities that's going to be the lead agency now on this, I think is a very positive development for us. We have been asked, I want council to put their head around it, we're going to have to discuss it at some point here. We have been asked for a meeting, and I am going to accede to that. And we're going to have a meeting either as a council or certainly with me as the mayor, with representatives from CUPW, the Canadian Union of Postal Workers. They've already asked if they can come and meet with us. They obviously intend to look to municipalities to be some kind of a force to deal with this issue of the impending cutbacks at Canada Post. We as a city, I believe we have no position on that at this point in time. We may all have our own thoughts on it, but no position on it. So I just gear you up that all of that is coming, okay? Everybody else pretty well told everything. One little change of structure in the future, in the year 2014, just so that everybody knows, all new business conducted at public council meetings will go in the following order. How's this for you? Because we've always had it going everywhere. It's going to go in the following order. First, it's going to be the mayor, followed by the deputy mayor, and then I'll just call on you in whatever order we want. What do you think? The deputy mayor supports that. Of course he does. I got a feeling we'll do it in seniority, yeah. And because that way we won't be constantly forgetting everybody. Having said that, I don't know if I have any other business other than say to everybody, join with everyone else. Guys, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Happy 2014. And let's all have a good one. See you back here at the next one. Motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Ledwell. We stand adjourned.